Ever wonder how this guy from Teen Titans Go went from the all-American golden boy to a cybernetic superhero? I guarantee it's nothing like what you'd expect. Meet Victor Stone, the guy who went from worried about pop quizzes to having notifications popping up in his brain. I mean, literally, it might sound cool to you, becoming half human, half android, but wait until you hear the shocking story of how it all happened. Sit tight because this story has more plot twists than Raven's emotional mood swings. Victor Stone was basically that kid everyone either wanted to be or wanted to date. We're talking about a straight-A student team captain, the "hey, I'm Mr. Awesome" kind of guy. Imagine having college scouts camping outside your house with scholarship offers, and your biggest worry was whether to go to MIT or Stanford. But here's the thing. Nobody ever saw a cybernetic superhero with a laser cannon arm anywhere on his career path. Well, maybe a nerdy scientist like his parents, but definitely not a robot. Victor's parents, Silas and Eleanor Stone, were the power couple of Star Labs. You know, the place where scientists do incredibly dangerous experiments and somehow always act surprised when things go wrong. They were so busy saving the world with their interdimensional research that family dinner conversations probably went something like, "How was school, son?" "Great, Dad." "How was poking holes in the multiverse today?" The sad truth is that Victor was competing with other dimensions for his parents' attention, and sadly, the other dimensions were winning. All he wanted was to understand what made his parents' work so important that they'd miss his games, his award ceremonies, and everything that mattered to him. Little did he know, his curiosity about their work would reshape his entire existence in ways nobody could have predicted. Except the creators anyway. So Victor decides to surprise his parents at work, you know, like a normal teenager trying to bond with his family. Except this wasn't bring your kid to work day. This was the let's open a portal to another dimension and see what happens day at Star Labs. And what was the most terrifying thing that happened? His parents were doing what they know how to do best, but apparently something on the other side had been waiting for an invitation to our universe. And it wasn't coming over for a friendly chat. One minute Victor's trying to have a heart-to-heart with his parents about feeling neglected, and the next minute, some nightmare creature from another dimension crashes the family reunion like the worst party crasher in history. This thing didn't just want to visit Earth, it wanted to redecorate it with chaos and probably a lot of screaming. Victor got caught in the crossfire, and this creature basically used him as a punching bag, leaving him with injuries so severe that even calling 911 would have been pointless. In that split second, his life was only hanging by a thread. But wait, it gets worse. His mother didn't make it out. So not only is Victor dying on the lab floor, but he's also watching his mother's life end in the same horrific moment. One minute he's got a promising future and a loving family. The next, he's got life-threatening injuries and half of his family is gone. Talk about the worst possible day in a kid's life. Faced with losing his son after already losing his wife, Silas Stone basically said, "Hold my beer. I'm about to try the most experimental medical procedure in human history." He grabbed every piece of cutting-edge technology Star Labs had and started rebuilding Victor like he was a science project with a 30-minute deadline. This wasn't like getting a titanium knee replacement or a fancy prosthetic. We're talking about major body parts being swapped out for machinery. His torso, his limbs, and parts of his face were all replaced with technology that could probably run Windows 11 better than most laptops. Silas turned his son into the world's most advanced android with real human emotions. Victor eventually woke up, and you could imagine him looking in the mirror and seeing the Terminator staring back at him. Except this time, it was his own face. Half of his body was now humming with electric systems, and he had to learn to live with the constant background noise of his own machinery. You can already tell his life will no longer feel the same anymore. The psychological impact was massive. He stopped worrying about migraines, and now it's software updates. He had superhuman strength, could shoot lasers through his robotic arm, and even hack into any computer system. But he also had to process the fact that he wasn't entirely human anymore. The worst part? His dad made this choice without asking, and that's what pissed Victor off. Silas was only trying to save his son's life, but Victor never got to decide whether he wanted to live as something totally different from what he'd always been. That's the kind of decision that creates family drama, that makes normal teenage rebellion look like a simple disagreement. But here's where it gets even more interesting. So what happens when you're a teenage cyborg who doesn't fit in anywhere? First, you go through that existential crisis phase of wondering what you are exactly. Victor's friends didn't even know how to act around him. I mean, how do you invite a cyborg to pool parties? Can he even swim? Or will he short circuit? Dating became impossible because how do you explain that your heart hasn't been updated yet to love? His superhuman strength meant sports were out of the question, unless he wanted to accidentally launch footballs into orbit. College scouts stopped calling because enhanced by experimental technology isn't really an approved recruiting category. Victor was basically stuck in that awful space between human and machine. belonging nowhere. Then here comes the Teen Titans to the rescue. Here's Robin, the Karate Kid with control issues, Starfire, who's literally from another planet and thinks eating bugs is a delicacy, Beast Boy, who can turn into a T-Rex but still can't figure out how to do laundry, and Raven, who's the daughter of an interdimensional demon with serious attitude problems. Now, this was more like it. Suddenly, being part machine seemed pretty normal by comparison. These weren't just teammates, they were fellow weirdos who understood what it felt like to not fit into regular society. The Titans didn't see Victor as a tragic science experiment, they saw Cyborg. The guy who could hack any villain security system, bench press a city bus, and still get unreasonably excited about finding the perfect sandwich. And let's talk about his relationship with his T-Car, because that's not just a normal technology on wheels. It's proof that Victor can form emotional connections with technology without losing his humanity. He found a way to love something mechanical while staying true to his human heart. And honestly, that's pretty profound for a show about teenagers in colorful costumes. Now, after all that trauma, reconstruction, and self-discovery, who really is Cyborg now? Well, if you only watch Teen Titans Go, you might think he's just the guy who screams about meatball parties and gets into arguments with his car's GPS. But that's actually the most incredible part of his story. He chose joy. Think about it. This is someone who lost his mother, his human body, and his entire life plan in one catastrophic day. He could have become bitter, depressed, or just shut down emotionally forever. Instead, he became the loudest, most enthusiastic person in every room he entered. That's not just character growth, that's superhuman emotional strength. When Cyborg jokes about his brain being a hard drive or having USB ports in his stomach, he's not making fun of his condition. He's choosing to find humor in his situation instead of letting it define him tragically. Those booyah shouts aren't just catchphrases, they're celebrations of being alive and choosing happiness despite everything he's been through. His obsession with technology isn't because he's part machine, it's because he's learned to find wonder in the world that saved his life. And let's not forget his love for simple pleasures like food, cars, and really terrible jokes. That's him holding onto his humanity with both his human and robotic hand. The Cyborg we see in Teen Titans Go represents something amazing. Someone who's made peace with being both human and machine without losing the best parts of either. He's not trying to go back to being fully human, and he's not rejecting his mechanical side either. He's created something new, a person who's more than half human, half robot. Look, we've all felt like outsiders at some point. We've all wondered if we belonged anywhere or if anyone would accept us for who we really are. Victor's story is extreme, but that feeling of not fitting in, that desperate desire to find your tribe, that's something almost everyone can relate to, Cyborg or not. So the next time you watch Cyborg get excited about waffles or argue with his car in Teen Titans Go, remember that you're watching someone who chose hope over despair, joy over bitterness, and connection over isolation. And honestly, in a world that can sometimes feel pretty dark, that's exactly the kind of hero we all need. What do you think? Does knowing Victor's full story change how you see those seemingly silly Teen Titans Go moments? Drop your thoughts in the comments and let us know which Titan's backstory you want us to dive into next.